of the Quad.
From bye bye to bye bye. Prime Minister Narendra Modi cold shoulders Chinese President Xi Jinping. India walks the diplomatic tightrope. With the world's eyes on Samarkand, India's big game on global stage is our top focus on the Newstrack.
India clearly set to play a bigger role in two very diverse and diametrically opposite global groupings, the Quad and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just had a successful meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. India has given a cold shoulder both to the President of China Xi Jinping and the Prime Minister of Pakistan Shahbaz Sharif. But what's that big message from the SCO summit? We debate with the finest analysts. I'm Gaurav Sawant. As always, let's get started with the headlines. A vegetable vendor in Kollam, Kerala claims he was thrashed for not paying 2,000 rupees for Congress Party's Bharat Jodo Yatra. The Congress cries conspiracy, brands the vendor a left party member. Big showdown over Hyderabad Liberation Day ahead of BJP celebrations. AIMIM takes out a Tiranga rally. Asaduddin Owaisi calls Liberation Day a day of liberation. Delhi's anti-corruption branch raids Aam Aadmi Party MLA Amanatullah Khan. A Beretta, cartridges and 12 lakh rupees in cash recovered. Hemant Biswa Sarma's most explosive interview triggers a massive political storm. The Assam Chief Minister lashes out at the Congress Party's Bharat Jodo Yatra, declares that the Congress is now irrelevant.
I don't think there should be a Congress president. This party should now... There is no relevance. Why there should be president? It should wind up.
8 cheetahs on their way to India from Namibia. Historic translocation of the world's fastest land animal begins. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to release the big cats in MP's Kuna National Park on his birthday tomorrow. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to leave Samarkand after attending the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation summit. The Prime Minister held bilaterals with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, with the President of Turkey Erdogan and Uzbekistan's President. Prime Minister Narendra Modi told the Russian President, today's era is not an era of war and that the focus should be on addressing food, fertilizer and fuel security concerns. This was the first in-person summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in the past 2 years. The focus was on major regional security challenges and issues like trade, investment and energy supply. India has now taken over the presidency of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The next summit will be held in New Delhi.
आज भी दुनिया के सामने जो सबसे बड़ी चिंता है और खास करके डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज को फूड सिक्योरिटी के, फ्यूल सिक्योरिटी की, फर्टिलाइजर की, ऐसी जो समस्याएं हैं, हमें जरूर उनके रास्ते निकालने होंगे और आपने भी उसमें पहल करनी होगी। उन विषयों पर भी आज चर्चा करने का मौका मिलेगा। मैं आपका और यूक्रेन दोनों का इस बात के लिए आभार व्यक्त करना भी चाहूंगा, क्योंकि जब शुरू के दिनों में इस संकट के काल में हमारे हजारों स्टूडेंट्स यूक्रेन में फंसे हुए थे, आपकी और यूक्रेन की मदद से हमारे स्टूडेंट को हम सुरक्षित रूप से बाहर निकाल पाए, उनके घर तक हम पहुंचा पाए और इसके लिए मैं आप दोनों देशों का आभारी हूं। आज का युग युद्ध का है नहीं और हमने फोन पर भी कई बार आपसे इस विषय में बात की है कि डेमोक्रेसी और डिप्लोमेसी और डायलॉग, ये सारी बातें ऐसी हैं कि जो दुनिया को एक स्पर्श करती हैं। आने वाले दिनों में शांति के रास्ते पर हम कैसे बढ़ सके, उसके विषय में जरूर आज हमें चर्चा करने का मौका मिलेगा। आपका व्यू पॉइंट समझने का मुझे भी एक अवसर मिलेगा।
I also know that tomorrow, my dear friend, you are about to celebrate your birthday. As per the Russian tradition, we never offer congratulations in advance, so I cannot do that right now. But I would like you to know that we know about that, and we wish you all the best. We wish all the best to the friendly Indian nation, and we wish prosperity to India under your leadership.
The Prime Minister also spoke of the close relationship with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. He spoke of how the two had started their careers almost together as political leaders in 2001 when Narendra Modi was about to take over as Chief Minister of Gujarat and the Russian President was then starting off on a political journey. Let's now shift focus to the other aspect of the SCO. Even though they shared the stage, they stood next to each other. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping did not shake hands. They didn't even exchange pleasantries, at least on camera. India had laid out the red carpet for China both at Ahmedabad and at Mamalapuram or Mahabalipuram, as did China for Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Wuhan. However, in May 2020, China stabbed India in the back with transgressions at multiple friction points in eastern and southern Ladakh. The disappointment at China's treachery was evident even in Samarkand.
Over 2 years since the world's biggest military standoff between India and China began in 2020, Prime Minister Modi shared the stage with Chinese President Xi Jinping, and the tension was palpable. There were no handshakes, no smiles, no pleasantries exchanged, just a cold hard look straight into the cameras. The icy interaction was in stark contrast to the last two Modi-Xi meetings. In 2019, when the two leaders met in Tamil Nadu's famed sculpture town, Mahabalipuram, there were handshakes galore. The two leaders even sipped coconut water together. The Modi-Xi bonhomie was at an all-time high in 2014 when the Chinese president visited Ahmedabad. The image of the two world leaders on a swing on the Sabarmati riverfront went viral. Much has changed since then. While the recent disengagement of Indian and Chinese troops from Gogra Hot Springs in eastern Ladakh is being seen as an indicator that there could be room for a thaw in the India-China relationship, New Delhi's focus remains on disengagement and de-escalation from remaining friction points, return to the April 2020 status quo.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping have come a long way. From reporting about the bromance, the bonhomie between the two leaders, to the cold chill of the India-China border areas now having trickled down to the leadership's body language here at the SCO summit in Samarkand, clearly shows that it'll take a long time for the relationship, the cold relationship between India and China to thaw. In Samarkand, Geeta Mohan for India Today.
But was India sidelined at Samarkand? The Congress took a potshot at Prime Minister Narendra Modi, alleging not mentioning salami slicing of Indian territory by China was akin to surrender. Gaurav, deputy leader of the Congress in Lok Sabha, alleged Prime Minister failed to protect the dignity of the Indian flag and our territorial integrity. The BJP hit back at the Congress, questioning the party's silence from surrender of Aksai to salami slicing of Indian territory for decades.
A photo op in Samarkand triggered a big political fight back in India. As the Prime Minister stood in line with world leaders at the SCO summit in Uzbekistan, Congress questioned why he was standing at the extreme end. Taunting the Prime Minister, Congress MP Gaurav said that India's strategic interests continued to suffer under him and his government.
photo op summit, it clearly shows what the host organizers of the event their personal view of India is, by putting India at the right left end, and on the extreme right end putting Pakistan, as if to equate India-Pakistan. India is much stronger as a nation and far more economically developed.
While the Congress equated India with Pakistan, the BJP hit back. Party countered with images of Rahul Gandhi alleging that the Congress MP had signed an MOU with China. The BJP also blamed Congress for playing politics over protocol.
The comment made by the Congress leader is very similar to the low thinking and ideology of the Congress. And let me say this as a proud Indian and being the voice of every Indian, that India stands tall today, and Modi ji and his leadership reflects the collective strength and will of our country.
As per the SCO summit protocol, India and Pakistan were at the extreme end during the photo opportunity because they are the newest member. With Geeta Mohan in Samarkand, Bureau Report, India Today.
India is a democracy, vibrant and noisy, and that's one of our core strengths. The opposition has targeted the Narendra Modi government for silence on Chinese salami slicing, but is it akin to surrender? What have been India's hits and misses at Samarkand? Joining me on the show, General Sanjay Meston, a respected defense analyst. He's been posted both in Ladakh and, of course, in Afghanistan. Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, a former top diplomat. Sushant Sareen is senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, studies the region very, very carefully. Shehzad Poonawala represents the BJP. Ajay Kumar represents the Congress on the broadcast. And Ajay Kumar, I want to begin by asking you, sir. You heard how warmly President Putin spoke of this privileged strategic partnership that India has with Russia. The two countries have shared together. The meetings that India has had with Turkey, Iran and Uzbekistan. Why then, sir, is the silence on Chinese salami slicing, in your view, akin to surrender?
Look, Gaurav, it's important to bring a couple of things what Gaurav Gogoi said, and I think the TV also is as much responsible. If you remember, I think the G20 summit, when the Prime Minister was kept in a privileged position, the photographs, the Bharatiya Janata Party and even the TV anchors went crazy, right? That, it is India's importance, etc., etc. I think it was one of your shows also. So my question to you is very simple: is half the time the TV channels keep getting excited on it. So now, obviously, when you keep saying, one second, let me complete. When you say the Prime Minister was given a privileged position in G20 photo, suddenly you see very agitated. Then you see that the people are going to get agitated if you see him at the corner. All right, now you might give plenty of explanations to it. I honestly don't think it's much of an issue. Whatever the explanation the MEA gives is fine. But stepping back, the three main issues were, I think the Prime Minister, he felt, the Prime Minister should have touched on terror and terror across, because there are different people across. Trade, obviously, there was some amount of discussion on trade, and then Afghanistan was totally sidelined. Now, the issue with SCO and the Afghanistan Troika, where you had the Russians, the Pakistanis, and the Chinese. They kept India totally out of it. Now, whether it's an informal discussion or not, India's interest is definitely tied up with the Afghanistan situation. Whether the SCO is subtly trying to undermine us is a different issue. We definitely expected the Prime Minister to raise this issue and also the opportunity. Now, whether you ignore the Chinese or not ignore the Chinese, the fact is, and I'll finish off with 30 seconds. The fact is there has been issues at the Chinese border. And the fact is that we need to have a political discussion on why the Chinese continues to obfuscate, continue with the misadventure. Now, there's no political discussion at all, whatever we might say the FM is discussing. So those are issues which are rightfully any opposition party.
So Shehzad Poonawala has his hand up to respond, but...
And my iPad.
Okay, my only point is... akin to surrender is a very strong word that, the deputy leader of the Congress used, in his social media platform. You've raised a number of other points, but nowhere close to akin to surrender. Shehzad Poonawalla respond. Why was Prime Minister standing in a corner? The Congress says India has been sidelined.
It's actually Congress's vision and their own political trajectory that has been sidelined, because at that point of time, Geeta Mohan, your reporter from there, explained how the protocol works in such events. The host country stands in the middle, flanked by the founder countries, and the new countries at the sides. But immediately after that particular, and this is for Gaurav Gogoi and Ajay Kumar, here is the Prime Minister front and center, as always is India. And let me also show him one more picture as to why anchors were so excited about the G20, because here is a picture of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh at G20. You can see him, second row, all nondescript, perhaps facing some domestic issues at home. And here is the Prime Minister leading the Quad, Prime Minister Narendra Modi leading the Quad, front ahead, leading Joe Biden and other countries, including the Japanese. So, you know, the point is, now let me come to a larger point. Mr. Ajay, I did not interrupt you. Please have the patience. Let me tell you what is surrender, because Gaurav Gogoi will obviously not come for a debate. When we give up Aksai Chin, 37,000 square kilometers, when you allow occupation of Tia Pangnak and the Chapji Ghati, when you allow Zorawar Fort to be destroyed and you allow a PLA observing point to come up in 2012, when you allow the giving away of Doom Cheli, when you allow 600 incursions between 2010 to 13, and at the same time you allow yourself to go into RCEP and allow the trade deficit to go from $1 billion to $36 billion, almost 33 times, at a time when you're taking money from China into the RGF. Well, that is complete surrender of our economic and territorial
Ajay Kumar,
rights.
wants to respond.
Yes. Gaurav, just 10 seconds more. Gaurav, just 10 seconds more. Look at what we've achieved. Gaurav, just 10 seconds more. Ajay Kumar, can I have 10 seconds, please?
No.
Can I please have 10 seconds? You're not the anchor. You're not the anchor.
Okay.
Gaurav, let me just sum up.
I will come back to you. Okay, Ajay Kumar, I will come back to you. Sir, when you spoke, Shehzad did not interrupt. My request is, let him complete his point. I will come back to you before I bring in...
While we're discussing pictures, Gaurav, can I please make my point? Why do we need to be so angsty?
Sir,
can I please complete?
Sir, my request is kindly give Shehzad Poonawalla his 10 seconds. I will come back to you before I go to our experts.
Thank you.
Okay, please finish.
But
Mr. Poonawalla.
while you're at it and you're talking about complete surrender, Mr. Ajay Kumar, can you explain
Yes,
this
Dr.
particular...
Ajay Kumar, my friend,
Mr. Kumar,
doctor.
can you please
I
stop
studied in
interrupting?
a medical
And can you please have the decency to hear
one
out
by
the
one.
panelists?
Gentlemen.
This is a picture of Rahul Gandhi surrendering
As
our
far as you
rights
are
by
concerned,
signing an MOU with the Chinese. Can you please tell us whether you call this surrender or not? And here's a picture of Rahul Gandhi eating Chinese food with a Chinese ambassador at the time when the Doklam crisis was taking place. Can you explain these pictures, please, sir?
Okay, Dr. Ajay Kumar. Yes, sir. Respond.
Can I explain?
Please, sir.
Yeah. First question is, look at the low level. Prime Minister Modi having Nariyal Pani, this guy can't see. Needs to get his eyesight checked. Jhula mein jhool rahe the, kuch problem nahi hai. 2,000 kilometers Chinese territory gone. Arunachal mein they're building nothing. So my question again is it okay to build structures in Arunachal? First question. This false nonsensical debate. Arunachal, you're building houses, no debate. Land gone in towards Galwan Valley, no discussion. So
Sir, why do you say no discussion?
Can I complete?
Sir, you're saying no political discussion is what you mean. Because on TV we are raising it every day. Go on, sir.
I want to tell you one more thing.
Go on, sir.
One more thing. Trade deficit. I mean, this guy comes on TV and says about trade deficit. What is the trade deficit with China now? What is the foreign exchange? So come and talk anything on TV. So I want to tell you one thing clearly.
First of all, Ajay Kumar, not one by one.
Sir, let Dr. Kumar finish.
This is Dr. Ajay Kumar, Shahid Saab, Poonawalla, Chilla. Let me complete. You can build structures in Arunachal. You can't ask questions. Our question was very simple. That the Chinese continue to build structures, you have covered it. They have territory under them. There is no discussion, whatever. It is a public domain, whether the TVs cover it or not. Our question is it wrong to ask these questions? But the Prime Minister should tell, no, when is he going to talk to the Chinese? Or when is there going to be it's a difficult... We are not saying it's easy.
Fair enough. Look, so you've raised a point. Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, let me now bring in the experts. I will come back to you.
Let me respond because otherwise...
30 seconds,
First of all, I offer honorifics when they're deserved. So let's get that clear. Okay. So Mr. Ajay Kumar...
On merit, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Ajay Kumar, your leader, who's a leader in the parliament... Now please pipe down. Now please pipe down and let me make my point. Every time I speak, he interrupts me.
No,
Gaurav, this privilege can't be given to one panelist to interrupt. Every time I speak.
Okay.
Every time I speak, he can't be interrupted.
anybody else can
only
comment,
Mr.
but you will
Poonawalla.
call me Dr.
Only Shehzad Poonawalla.
I
Thank you.
have earned
Now,
it. I stand on the
Doctor,
best match.
you know, the problem
Absolutely,
is,
sir, but that's not the topic of discussion
Yeah,
today.
now
With
the
due
problem
respect.
is-
Why does the
no,
Shehzad
this
guy
can't be
continue
allowed.
to-
Okay,
Gaurav, it's my
okay,
turn to
only Shehzad Poonawalla. Please respond, sir.
You know, the intellectual bankruptcy of entitled Dianists like Gaurav Gogoi, who raised the issue of the position of the Prime Minister in a picture. It wasn't me, it was not the BJP, it was the Congress party that raised where is the Prime Minister standing in a picture, and therefore that had to be retorted in exactly the same way. But today, let us tell you where India is standing as a country. We are standing at a position of strategic autonomy, a position of strength, a position of pragmatism, and a position of principles as well. Today
Fair
we have
enough.
today we have, in a sense, made become the arbiter of two very different groups in the global order. On the one hand, we have the G7, the G20, where we are at the Quad, and we also are at the SCO, trying to take our interests forward, whether it's energy security, whether it's regional cooperation, whether it's regional connectivity,
But are
whether
we
it's
succeeding is the point. Well, sir, you've made that point. Let me bring in Ambassador Sajjan Har.
The fact is that today both Russia and Iran are going to be, Russia in particular, not Iran, Russia is selling us oil at a lower rate than the other players, and this is something that we have achieved. Let's acknowledge that.
Okay, hold on. Let's move beyond the tutu meme, sir. Ambassador Sajjan Har, you're a diplomat, sir. You've dealt with this for decades in your professional career. In your view, was India sidelined at Samarkand?
Thank you very much, Gaurav. There are two questions that have been raised. One is whether India was sidelined or not. In my considered view, definitely India was not sidelined. I think this is the protocol, the diplomatic protocol that is followed by different countries, and this time it was not.
Okay, Ambassador, give me a moment. We've lost your line. We were able to hear that bit when you said India was not sidelined. Sushant Sareen, was this a platform for bilateral issues like the situation along the LAC, the SCO platform?
Well, I believe if the two principals had a bilateral, then they would have discussed some of those issues. But I suspect, Gaurav, that something happened because, before the meeting took place, there was a lot of chatter, although I don't know how much of it was based on reality. But nevertheless, at least in the media, there was a lot of chatter
yes, there was
of
some,
a possible meeting between the President of China and the Indian Prime Minister. Obviously, some things were happening on the back channel. It was speculated that even the deal on the LAC was with a view that the two guys are going to be meeting in Samarkand. Obviously, something has happened that the meeting never took place. I would love to be a fly on the wall of some office of the Prime Minister's office or the MEA to understand what exactly happened. But obviously, something happened that the Prime Minister decided that he's not going ahead with this particular meeting and nothing could be fixed. Similarly, I don't know why all you media guys get all very excited in anticipation of a possible India-Pakistan meeting without ever trying to understand what is in it for India to meet Shahbaz Sharif. The guy is on his last legs. You don't know whether he'll survive 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 months or 1 year. The army has completely been neutered. Imran Khan is the boss right now. He's the guy who's calling the shots. What are you going to get out of Shahbaz Sharif? What does he have to give to you? And then for the Pakistanis to pretend as though they are some kind of a superpower of the world, that, we are open to trading with India. Aloo pyaz unke yahan par 400-500 rupaye kilo hai. We are open to trading with India, provided India talks on Kashmir. You guys want trade because your guys are dying of hunger. And you guys are paying so much money and you want India to compromise on its core interests. So the Pakistanis live in an alternate reality. And I think the Prime Minister did a very wise thing by not, by basically dismissing them and not bothering about any kind of a bilateral.
Okay.
I know it will disappoint many people, including in your channel, Gaurav,
okay.
The usual suspects.
We stay on,
but
yes,
I think
sir.
that was the right thing to do.
Okay, you think it was the right thing to do by not engaging with pauper Pakistan because what does Pakistan have to give India, especially when it hasn't addressed India's core concerns of taking action against the parliament attack accused, the hijackers of IC 814, 2611 Mumbai terror attacks, Pathankot, Pulwama, and a series of other Pakistan state-sponsored terror attacks on India and Indian interests in Afghanistan. And that is where I want to bring in Major General Meston, who was India's defense attaché to Afghanistan. General, should India have taken up the situation along the LAC, and was Prime Minister, where he was standing in the first picture, was that akin to being sidelined, or in your view, surrendering India's national interest as suggested by the deputy leader of the Congress party in Lok Sabha?
Gaurav, good evening. Very precise answers. Firstly, I think it has emerged very clearly India was not sidelined, and this was a protocol photograph, and I think that should not be even debated by anyone, because we all have to have a strategic bent of mind rather than discussing these trivial issues which are being raised by some people. That's really not to be even thought of. Number two, India has, I think, played a very, very good role here, and I will explain why. See, firstly, he has our Prime Minister, Shri Modi, has totally sidelined, I would say, China. Of course, Pakistan should not even be considered in our radar, because they are not to be considered a state.
No, you're saying India has sidelined China. Explain that, sir.
Yes. Yes. Now, how we have sidelined China? See, the fact of the matter is we have not had any engagement bilateral with them. I was expecting, actually, that President Xi Jinping will take some initiative, and maybe at the behest of President Putin. Because President Putin's interest is that India today needs to be much closer to Russia, and therefore indirectly that has to be, the trade-off has to be done between China and India having some kind of a bilateral talks. That has not happened. So we have been very, I would say, clear in our policy. And let me make it very clear, Gaurav. I think today we as a nation cannot be taken for a ride by any so-called power, whether it is Russia, whether it is America. Now, case in point itself here today lies. I think to President Putin, our Prime Minister has conveyed very emphatically that democracy, dialogue, and of course,
diplomacy is the way forward.
Is the order of day. That is one point. Secondly, see, he's highlighted democracy. He's conveyed a very clear-cut message to Prime Minister, to Putin, and also I think to the other states, including China. And number two, he has also clearly said that this is not the era of war.
Yes.
It requires courage to speak these things in a forum and which is being heard by the media. So we are not towing Russia's line, we are not towing American line, we are towing the Indian interest. And today India is not doing a balancing act. A lot of people say we are doing a balancing act. I think balancing act implies we are pleasing others. No, we are pleasing our national interest. And
that's a very pertinent point you make. Okay, before I come back to Dr. Ajay Kumar and Mr. Poonawalla, Sushant Sareen, you'd raised your hand. Respond, sir, on the point that India is not trying to please either China or Russia. India is putting Indian interest first. It's India first. Is it?
Gaurav, just give me half a second to this whole fracas over this protocol thing. There are multiple ways in which protocol is decided. It can be alphabetic, it can be date of joining. Heads of state, for example, are given precedence over heads of government. There are multiple things. Now, you just pick up one thing and then you start creating a storm in a teacup. I don't know whether it behoves a party like the Congress, the grand old party at one point of time, the party of natural governance, to indulge in this kind of pettiness, but I suppose that's what they've been reduced to.
Okay.
On the issue of, China and Russia and India, look, India, I think as the foreign minister, Mr. Jaishankar has said many times, India does whatever it does in its own interest. It does not do it for anybody else. Our interests are served by maintaining a relationship with Russia. To the extent we can maintain it, we will maintain it and we will profit from it. If, for example, that relationship becomes very onerous, we will have to start putting some distance between ourselves and the Russians. Similarly, with the Chinese, when things were good, we were building up our relationship. But when the Chinese resorted to the kind of actions they did, there has been a kind of a pushback from our side. Has the pushback been enough? Certainly not. Can more be done? Certainly more can be done, should be done. But then for that, you have to build up your own sinews and you have to build up your own capacities.
Fair enough.
There
So let me bring in
so
Dr. Ajay Kumar to respond to this. Sir, is there merit then in Shehzad Poonawala of the Bharatiya Janata Party saying it was under Congress rule that India lost accession? It was actually under Congress rule that India accepted China's illegal occupation of Tibet and subsequent salami slicing of Indian territory. Now when India is fighting back, and a lot more needs to be done, as Sushant Sareen was just pointing out, a lot more needs to be done. But that's where shouldn't the entire nation be talking in one voice against an expansionist China?
A couple of things. First of all, Sushant seems to be very agitated on the photo, but the grand Bharatiya Janata Party was obsessed about a T-shirt. So Sushant ji, from an obsession or low-level politics, my colleagues on the other side are the top-rate guys. I mean, they cannot, unless you're totally out of Twitter, the lowest level of politics. No, you need to listen, Sushant, because the lowest level of politics, what BJP is reduced to, please mention them, because whatever be your likes and all, I would appreciate that. The second issue is Mr. Poonawala continued to tell untruths. One second, let me complete.
Let Dr. Kumar complete his point, sir. Let Dr. Ajay Kumar complete. I'll come both to Shehzad Poonawala and to you, sir.
The second issue is, on photo, the Bharatiya Janata Party was excited on the G20. When they don't get excited, so my issues, these are petty issues, I accept. The third point, which is very important for your TV channel, is the continued untruths by Shehzad Poonawala. India has got the highest trade deficit with Chinese right now. His exports are down by 29%. He comes on the national TV and continues to tell untruths. So for my friend, even I have Googled Shehzad Poonawala, you can have Google, so tell the facts on TV. Third issue, the Aksai Chin issue, the diplomats are there, the army generals are here. Let them speak the truth on Aksai Chin. On the issue of Tibet, Tibet was never accepted. It was the political stand of Tibet was very different right from independence. Suddenly, all the army officers or the foreign service officers who understand the position which India held, 62 waters debacle we accept. Those are challenges. Same was the creation of Bangladesh, was a great success. We are highlighting that the Chinese are created chaos. They have captured a certain amount of territory on Galwan and they are building structures at Arunachal. Those are issues which I think whether it's an army officer who served in the Congress or the BJP, that's not the issue because they are neutral, or so are foreign service officers. My question again is very simple. There were 3 points to be raised. One was on terror, one was on Afghanistan, one was on trade.
Okay.
Now the question again, and whether you met Putin one-to-one. So my question again is whether you gave Chinese the cold shoulder or not is not my concern. My question is, the Chinese are misbehaving on our borders. Those are serious issues.
Shehzad Poonawala, Chinese continue to misbehave. They may have disengaged, but they haven't either de-escalated or there is no talk of de-induction, which is what the conversation was 28 months ago. And Dr. Ajay Kumar says, what are these terms of disengagement? The nation doesn't know whether the entire disengagement is on the Indian side, whether we've created a buffer zone on the Indian side. Should the government not take the opposition in confidence, sir?
First of all, it's so intellectually bankrupt to compare an issue of domestic politics about the Bharat Jodo Yatra and justify what the Congress did by playing politics on an international platform where India is one. Prime Minister Modi represents me, he represents Ajay Kumar, he represents Congress, he represents BJP. But he is justifying what happened with the T-shirt and asking Sushant Sareen to comment on the T-shirt. I mean, that shows but I'm glad at least Ajay Kumar accepted that Gaurav Gogoi raised a petty issue. Those are his words, not mine. But having said that, let me tell you, you remember a defense minister of this country once got up in parliament and said that the best policy was not to irk China by building infrastructure along the LAC? You remember for how long that infrastructure wasn't built? Today you have a government that allows the armed forces and everybody else to do what is required, whether it's building infrastructure or whether it is looking into the eye of the Chinese at Doklam or whether it is giving them a befitting response at Galwan, which by the way the Congress party questioned and said that no, we did not give a befitting response at Galwan. They in fact doubted the bravery of our braves also there. But having said that, let me come to a larger fundamental point. Look how the world has changed after COVID. And let's take two incidents. One is the COVID pandemic itself, and let's take the Ukraine-Russia war. When the Ukraine-Russia war started, the only person or the only government that could speak to both Zelensky and to Putin was Prime Minister Modi's government. It is the fact is that we managed to rescue our citizens, and in fact not just our citizens, but in fact citizens of neighboring countries, and we did it time and again, whether it was Libya, Syria, Yemen, a number of Operation Ganga in Afghanistan, whether it was the Vande Bharat mission. This is the power of India today. And apart from that, when it came to COVID, those who doubted that our vaccines would be BJP vaccines, those vaccines would work or not work, we not only gave vaccines to all our people in India, 200 crore plus vaccine doses, but we also gave about 25 crore vaccines to 100 countries through the COVAX initiative.
Fair
and
enough,
we became
but
the
I want to stay on the issue of the LAC.
No, what I'm trying to say is that we have been able to establish ourselves not just as a position of pragmatism, but also a position of principle, where we have been able to shoulder world responsibility, and therefore the world looks at us. Instead of celebrating that, the Congress party is trying to prove that India is weak. I don't understand whose interest that they are trying to. Why would they want to hyphenate us with Pakistan? Why would they want to try to show that India is not strong?
But I think that hyphenation with Pakistan is gone forever. Everyone realized
this is what Gaurav Gogoy did. When he said that, look, India and Pakistan are both in corners, that hyphenation of India with Pakistan seems to be the obsession of Pakistan and Congress.
That's one pauper Pakistan that no one even talks about. Okay, Dr. Ajay Kumar, quick 30 seconds. I've just got Ambassador Sajjan Har's line back. Go on, Dr. Kumar.
So the lack of leading is one of the remarkable abilities in our political opponents. The first question is, the people of Ladakh are saying that our grazing lands have become a buffer zone. The country wants to know. There's nothing wrong in asking. Now, if you ask the question, anti-national, Pakistani, shameless people, kuch bhi. We are just asking what the people of Ladakh, people of India want to know. Second issue is they're building structures in Arunachal. What are we planning to do? Is looking after national interests. They are Pakistanis. They should go to Pakistan. For the simple reason being, asking questions to your political leaders is a primary duty of a nationalist.
When these questions are answered by people wearing the uniform, when they tell you they've conducted the surgical strike, the DGM does a press conference, do you believe them? You ask them for evidence. When the Air Force Chief tells you that we've done a Balakot airstrike, you ask them for evidence. Now, if the armed forces of the country are saying that we have gone back to the position before the entire situation developed, you are not willing to believe that. They have said very categorically what the situation on the ground is, but you don't know the armed forces.
No certificates of patriotism or being anti-national on this broadcast. But I want to bring in Ambassador Sajjan Har. Ambassador Sajjan Har, the nation must know what's happening on ground. The nation must know what's the situation diplomatically. Now, some are saying China has an upper hand diplomatically. Is that the case in your appreciation?
There are a number of fora where, we can speak about this. You can speak about this as to what is the situation in the SCO. You can speak about this, what is the situation as far as bilateral issues are concerned. Let me try and address Gaurav very quickly. First, I'm sorry, my line got disconnected. Let me try and address very quickly a couple of the points that have been made. One is a point that was made that why did Prime Minister Modi not raise the issue of the line of actual control, the violence, the action taken by China in his statement at the SCO. Bilateral issues, I'm sure everyone recognizes and realizes that bilateral issues cannot be raised in these plurilateral or multilateral fora. So whether it is SCO or it is ASEAN or it is any of the other fora, you don't raise bilateral issues, because if you were to do that, Pakistan would be doing something, India would be doing something, there would be no discussion whatsoever as far as the SCO matters are concerned on trade, connectivity, terrorism. Second aspect is, point that has been made, why did Prime Minister Modi not interact with President Xi Jinping? I think that was the right thing to do. In a number of my own writings, I have very strongly recommended that there is no reason, because, otherwise it would be seen as a sign of weakness. What China wants today is business as usual, as they say, keeping the border issue in its right place. And we have told them that the situation on the border will determine the state of our relationship broadly. You would recall, Gaurav, that when the two leaders had met in Astana in 2017, when the Doklam case was, eyeball to eyeball confrontation was going on. At that time, Prime Minister Modi had reached out to Xi Jinping. And at that time, it was decided, what came to be known as the Astana Consensus, that the disputes should not, their disagreements should not be allowed to become disputes. Here, I don't think there was any reason whatsoever. So I think the message has gone out very clearly to China that as far as India is concerned, the situation in the border is very important, and they will have to make very significant moves there if they want that relations with India.
So the ball you're saying is in China's court.
Can I have this last point? The point that has been made as to why was Afghanistan not raised, why was not raised. You know, these are issues you don't give all details. After all, these are very short, brief, introductory points about 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes.
Okay.
And after that, there is a whole lot of discussion that takes place between all the leaders. Let us wait for the
Foreign Secretary to give us
SCO
details.
declaration, and I'm sure
Yes.
issues of SCO, issues of Afghanistan, all of those will come out, and I'm sure that the position of India will be duly recognized.
Fair enough.
And will be duly
Before I come to
protected
Shehzad Poonawalla
in that
and
SCO
Dr. Ajay
declaration.
Kumar, General Meston, does China, and I have very little time on the broadcast, does China have an upper hand militarily at this stage?
Not at all. China does not have any upper hand. I'll give you why. Firstly, so-called whatever was highlighted on the buffer zone, we are not going to patrol those areas, and China is also not going to patrol our areas. That is very, very clear. So it is status quo. There is no give and take. It is very clear. Coming on the infrastructure, we have been building our infrastructure, and we have been deploying troop deployment to the extent we have mechanized armored forces deployed there. And even if China is doing, we are also doing. So militarily wise, we have better this thing. And last and not the least, we have very, very good defenses. Bunkers. Today, let me tell you, we have got bunkers in first tier, second tier and third tier defenses, whereas China does not have really bunkers in most of the places. So in every facet, we are better, and logistics wise, we are doing so much. I was myself in the Military Operations Directorate, and let me again put one point very clear. You know, infrastructure is not overnight. This has been going on. For example, the Shiok Darpok, when I was in Leh,
yes,
this road is going to DPO. This was planned in 2003, approved thereafter. So the road construction takes time. It's a very difficult terrain.
Yes.
It is not that everything has happened just suddenly. So what I'm trying to highlight is, Army is doing its job. The government of India, whether it is X government or Y government, they support us. Ministry of External Affairs.
Fair enough. You've made that very good point, sir. X government or Y government, it's India's stand that needs to be put out. Okay, Dr. Ajay Kumar, last 30 seconds and then I'll come to you.
Then he can answer.
Okay.
Just 5 seconds. I won't take more than that.
Just 5 seconds. Just let him respond. Go on, sir. Dr. Ajay Kumar. Go on, sir.
The BJP has to understand that the infrastructure is a long-term project. And they continue to do it. Whether we built the mountain division and they took it over is not the issue. The issue is it is the interest of India. Second issue is, my only angst is not meeting the Chinese is perfectly okay. But how do you react? You ban Tightrope Act. The trade deficit continues. We continuously rely on Chinese.
Trade deficit,
so we are saying business as usual. We are saying is business as usual with Chinese actually is business as usual. Why aren't we taking steps on that?
Because the External Affairs Minister on more than one occasion has said, Mr. Poonawalla, that the situation, the relationship between India and China will be decided by the situation along the LAC.
You know, those who allowed the map of India to be changed are now talking about the apps of India. No, Gaurav, let me please complete. It can't be that he speaks in his turn and he interrupts me every time I've got an opportunity to speak.
Absolutely. Dr. Ajay Kumar, please let Mr. Poonawalla respond.
And doesn't behave somebody who wants to be called a doctor.
Okay, respond, Mr. Poonawalla.
But I can only respond if he pipes down and doesn't interrupt the audience from hearing what I'm trying to say, which is sense.
Go ahead, Mr. Poonawalla.
Thank you, sir. Anyways, let me tell you what irks the Congress the most, and it was articulated by Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi says that he was told by European bureaucrats that Indian Foreign Service has completely changed. They don't listen to anything. They are arrogant. They tell us what orders they're getting, and there was no conversation between the two sides. The problem is that today Indian Foreign Servants or India is keeping its own interests first, and unlike Rahul Gandhi who wanted us to get briefings from Europeans, that's not happening anymore, and therefore that is the thing that probably irks Rahul Gandhi and his party and his leaders who come here to represent them. But this conversation between the Europeans or asking others for opinion as to what India's interest should be has over. This is new India. Accept it, Dr. Ajay Kumar.
Okay, I've run out of time on this part of the debate, but we will be hearing from the government. We'll also be seeing what transpired today and what transpires in the days and weeks ahead. For joining me here on this India Today special, Many thanks. A quick break. Coming up next, 8 cheetahs are on their way to India from Namibia. Historic translocation of the world's fastest land animal begins. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is to release the big cats on his birthday tomorrow. Details coming up.
Hey, I noticed something new. You started using a new body lotion. Funny.
I'm so sorry for the delay. I was on another call. It just kept going on.
No, Papa. You have been a steam bath. Steam bath? At home? Two steam bath he takes.
Go to your homework.
It's 7:20 already. The kickoff's in 5 minutes. Get all the boys. We have the entire place to ourselves, man. Not working?
Of course it is. But I don't want you guys to be using this bathroom. So use the other one.
Hey, I noticed something new. You started using a new body lotion. Funny.
Welcome back. It is the historical translocation of the carnivore cats. 8 cheetahs are on their way to India from Namibia. They are undertaking a 10-hour-long flight. The big cats will land in Gwalior early Saturday morning and then will be flown in Indian Air Force's Chinook helicopters to the Kuna National Park in Madhya Pradesh. They will then be released into the wild by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on his birthday.
They're the fastest living land animals, and they're about to have a possible new dawn. Eight African cheetahs, 5 female and 3 male from Namibia, will have a new home in India. They're part of a first of its kind transcontinental mission to repopulate them in India. Cheetahs became extinct in India in 1952. 7 decades later, they're coming to India in a customized Boeing 747 aircraft from Namibia's capital, Windhoek. Traveling overnight, they will reach Gwalior in Madhya Pradesh on the morning of September the 17th. Then they will be flown straight to their new home, Kuno National Park in Madhya Pradesh in helicopters. In total, they will have flown 8,400 kilometers. The aircraft bringing the cheetahs to India has been modified to allow cages to be secured in the main cabin. It will allow vets to have full access to the cats during the 10-hour-long flight.
We discussed together how to do it, and we decided to remove all the seats and do a special modification for this particular flight.
The aircraft is an ultra-long-range jet capable of flying for up to 16 hours without stopping to refuel. This will allow it to fly directly from Namibia to India.
This is the same plane which will take 8 cheetahs from Namibia to all the way to Jaipur and then to Kuno National Park.
It is a very important consideration for the well-being of these carnivorous cats who would be traveling empty stomach.
These cheetahs are all wild caught, they're not captive bred. So we have like successful experience of tiger introduction. there is no issue with these animals which have been identified for translocation, and the introduction program will be a successful program.
The 8 cheetahs, ranging from 4 to 6 years of age, are expected to undergo stress, lose weight, and possibly get disoriented during the translocation across such a large distance. That could also reduce their fitness for the wild. After they're released at Kuno National Park on the 17th of September, they will be kept in the Boman, an African word for a specially designed enclosure, for a whole month. In the Boma, carefully arranged prime cuts of small game of cheetahs has been introduced for these prime feline guests to hunt without competition for starters. This is expected to restore some of their spirit. After a month of acclimatization on a whole new continent, the radio-collared cheetahs will be moved to a bigger enclosure before being released into the wild in another couple of months.
This project is not something that is going to just be over as soon as we bring the cats there. It's a very, very long-term project. We're looking at probably not seeing results for 5 to 10 years. So it is very, very long, and just because we're bringing them there now, our work is just beginning.
This is the first batch. India is about to sign a memorandum of understanding with South Africa, and a batch of 12 cheetahs are being prepared for translocation in October. With Ashutosh Mishra and Pooja Shali in Kuno National Park, Madhya Pradesh. Bureau Report, India Today.
And India Today's reporters on Ground Zero and I will continue to get you the latest on this big story tomorrow. But that is all I have for you on this special broadcast. Many thanks for watching. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.
Armed with facts, she takes the news by its horns.
Do you think the future of these students are not hampered?
Fierce, bold and direct, setting the tone for the biggest stories. From every corner and every angle. Expect nothing but the unfiltered truth.
News first, niceties later. Watch me, Nabila Jamal, on India Today.
Traveling from different parts.
Armed with facts,
Looking at political black.
she takes the news by its horns.
Do you think the future of these students are not hampered?
Fierce, bold and direct, setting the tone for the biggest stories.